All right, let's get started. Thanks again, everyone, for taking some time to join us today. Hope everybody is doing well despite the circumstances around the world. We're sending our best to all of you, and thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to join us. I'm confident we'll hopefully add some value to your day and stimulate some thinking as many of you plan your returns to work using technology and so forth. We've got a special guest today that we're particularly excited about. But before I introduce them, just a quick agenda of what we're going to cover in the next 45 minutes or so, some introduction and housekeeping. We love to make these sessions as interactive as possible, so don't be shy to drop in questions in the Zoom chat and or send those to content@knotel.com. I'll keep an eye on those throughout the session, and we'll take them as they come in and potentially carve out some time towards the end to take those. Obviously, health and safety, the kind of the topic du jour for many companies and leaders like Davide and Christina, who I'll introduce here in a second. Obviously, for real estate leaders and HR executives around the world, the employee experience is particularly important as they think about giving employees psychological safety and physical safety as some of them slowly start returning to the office. And then we'll go into the office and we'll virtually, of course, and we'll start thinking about how you can future-proof your space. We've got a pretty nifty video we'll show, almost like a live demo. We'll have Davide walk us through as well. So a little bit of interactivity and then hopefully some actionable tips and guidance on how to actually start to operationalize some of these plans. And again, questions for these two experts, please send them in. We want to take advantage of Christina and Davide's collective expertise. Again, send those in through your Zoom chat or email content@knotel.com. Without further ado, I want to introduce Christina Cooper, who many of you know, Knotel's head of workplace strategy and design. Christina is the ultimate subject matter expert, and looking forward to some of her perspective today. And Davide Shaman, the CEO of Spacemate, really impressive background, and looking forward to hearing from Davide and seeing some of the Spacemate technology. Christina and Davide, thanks again for joining us today. Christina, why don't you just start us off with a little bit of background and give us some of your history.
Sure. So as Musa mentioned, I'm the head of workplace strategy and design at Knotel. Prior to Knotel, I worked at Gensler for about 7 years, and I've been at Knotel for about 2.5. And so I've always worked in workplace and have done design and both strategy. So I think a lot of what we'll cover today and what I've seen over the last, almost year now that we've been working from home has really pushed us into like the future of work that I think a lot of us have been talking about for some time. So there's definitely some exciting ways we're talking about employee experience and like leveraging technology and tools that Davide is going to go over too with us today. So I'm excited to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm super excited to be here with you. My name is Davide Schaumann. I'm the CEO and founder of Spacemate, which is a software company that uses predictive analytics to optimize the design and operations of spaces, of complex spaces. We work on offices, on flexible and co-working spaces, but also hospital and transportation hubs. So my background is in architecture, but combined with computer science. I got my master's from the Politecnico di Milano, the city where I come from originally. I got my PhD from the Technion, Israeli Institute of Technology. And Spacemate is basically the result of over a decade of work on predictive analytics for human behavior, human spatial behavior in buildings. And the company is based at Cornell Tech, which is a tech campus on Roosevelt Island here in New York, which is affiliated with Cornell University as well as Technion. And I'm very excited to be here. I've been working with Knotel during this pandemic to reactivate their offices together, to improve safety and productivity. And I'm very excited to share some of this work together and talk about the future-proofing office space.
Excellent. Thank you both. Christina, why don't you, I'll turn it over to you and we'll get the show.
Sure. Yeah, so I think, when we, and I apologize, my doorbell just rang, my dog's barking in the background. That's the work from home lifestyle of living. So the, when we approached specifically for our own Knotel work return, we had 3 big goals in mind. And I think after going through it for ourselves and also talking to customers who were doing the same thing, these 3 buckets are what we think are the most important in our return. And what we've done a lot of research or work into and what we were planning on, partnering with Spacemate on to kind of show how we could solve these things in our space. So health and safety is number one. I think that's a big concern, obviously, of everyone's, both employers and employees. Like what are the health and safety concerns people have in a return? How do you facilitate that return? And what's really like the business case for coming back when you have maybe some people who are saying like, everyone's working from home, that's fine, but what are the benefits of actually returning to the office? And then on the employee experience side, there's the balance between remote and physical work. Like remote work's not going to go away after there's a vaccine or we return to the office. But I don't think it means physical work is dead either. And how does the employee engagement and other things, how has that all impacted communication and different things like that, culture with people working from home? And then thinking towards the future, because there's obviously the right now, which is maybe more on the forefront of health and safety, but this just proved more than anything how unpredictable things can be, and how do you kind of plan for the future. So we're going to cover all those three topics and try and answer a lot of these questions using our own case study, but also this is something we've done with our customers and what we worked really closely with Spacemate on.
Great. Yeah. And Christina, if you don't mind me jumping in there, your first bullet there under employee experience, I think most people have come to some consensus that I think that the most likely path forward for most major enterprises and companies is going to be some sort of hybrid, balanced continuum of in the office and working from home. Some people call it work from anywhere, work from near home. But the idea, people like me who used to go in 5 days a week, I think, will be radically altered as we enter, the next phase of life post-pandemic. And speaking of future-proofing, optimism is starting to grow as we see the vaccines hopefully coming to fruition. But we're still several months away, I think, from a little bit more safer, realistic, viable path back. But hopefully we'll cover some of these topics throughout the course of the discussion today.
Yep, definitely. So in terms of health and safety, I will cover like the topics that people care about, but I also know we've talked about this. A lot of people have been talking about this. So I do want to also talk a little bit about how the employees experience safety. So in general, I mean, concerns for most people were around commuting, the way the office was going to work, how many people might be there. And then, a lot of people have their own issues on top of it. They might be comfortable coming back, but does that impact them being able to see their families or other things like that? So it's kind of a lot of factors weighing on how people are coming back. So I think as most people have done and what we've done for ourselves and our customers is really, how do we help create these policies and guidelines for a return, but actually applying it like physically to the space and making sure that that's very clear to everybody even before they're in the office. So, these are examples of wayfinding signage, different ways, communicating the space is offline, this meeting room should be used for less people, keeping social distance. I think, the signage is something we've done for most of our people who have come back to the office. But then the floor markers is another way that we've done this and really shown, social distance markings. This is where our hand sanitizer stations are and just kind of different things like that throughout the space, which is also a really good, I think a lot of this is layered into experiential side of things too, where we're able to kind of tie our own brand and our own, showcase our own culture a little bit in some of these things, which seems like a small touch, but actually kind of makes it for a little bit more of a exciting return, I guess. If you go to the next slide, Musa, can also show before people return. So I think the previous was really like how we can implement these safety guidelines and other things that I know we've talked a lot about. But the next step is really how do you equip people to be prepared for this? And I think I've said this to a lot of people, but like over communicating is kind of key right now, and making sure that people feel comfortable before they're even stepping foot in the office. If like what a lot of people are concerned about is how the office is going to be used, how many people are going to be there, and I'm worried about my commute. We've tried to go through measures to make sure people are comfortable with that even before they get there, so they know what to expect. So on the left side, you'll see a nice map that we made for everyone. This is the way the office is going to be laid out. I think that whether or not you're returning, so we particularly returned to an office that we had never been in before. And some people did that because they maybe shrunk their footprint or they moved their office. But other people returned to the same office, but the way it's going to be used is a lot different. So I think in either case, having kind of this map or this something you can give your employees to really say, like, this is what to expect is really helpful. The middle is an image of something we've rolled out called Healthy Office, which is the ability for people to kind of reserve that they're coming into the office. I'm going to be there this day, and then that helps us know, too many people are in the office, I'm not comfortable going, and you can kind of check up on that, as well as note like take your temperature and do these other things that let you know, like, I'm safe to come into the office. And then we also shared with our employees some on-brand masks and hand sanitizer and things like that, which again, I think can feel like a small thing, but really ties into like the culture and experience side of things, which we'll jump into.
Yeah, Christina, mine actually arrived earlier this week, and it was just such a pleasant surprise. I knew we were sending these out, but just to see the package in the mail and open it up was kind of surprised and reminded me of why, of how much I miss the colleagues and being around everyone. But we can wait a little longer until it's safer to hopefully all be back together.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's like a really good segue into the experience side, which is a really big thing for us to make sure we got that right. And I think our stakeholders for our own internal return, but a lot of the people that we're seeing, we're talking to a lot more than maybe we had before. Heads of people teams or HR who are really interested in what does this mean for the future and culture and the people experience side. So we partnered really close with our team to make sure that we did this part well. And while we wanted everything to feel safe and people to feel good about coming back, we also want to make it a really good reason as to why you're coming back and remind people of the culture and the things that maybe they're missing at home. And we had done a webinar when this all started, talking about some of the research and things that we've uncovered about what would make you most comfortable in a return, but also what do you miss the most about the office? And the top answers to that were teamwork and company social activities and really tied to that culture side. So we tried to use a lot of that data in how we were going to design the office and kind of create these special moments that we're going to make people really want to come back, of course, when it's safe to do so.
Yeah, and again, Christina, not surprised, your top two there, team work sessions, company social events, basically like being around other humans. And there's plenty of data around out there about the benefits of kind of in-person physical collaboration, unlocking creativity and collaboration and kind of those moments of serendipity that unfortunately I haven't had in many months. I'm sure others in the line feel the same way. So we're all eagerly awaiting the day when we can look back at this in the past.
Yeah,
totally.
Maybe if I can also jump in for a sec, Christina. So there's also a kind of a business value to it. So we agree that experience is very important, as we're talking about right now. Yeah, this is the perfect image to show it. The thing is that the movement to the remote work has been very sudden. So there was a sudden switch between, oh, everybody's in the office, oh, everybody home. And the fact that it was so fast, it may have worked right at the beginning for a few months, but the problem is endurance. How long can we work in this thing? The problem is that technology and culture was not there. We were not prepared to completely move remotely. And then as a consequence, Zoom became the kind of the synonym of working from home. But and working remotely, but it doesn't work like that, right? Zoom provide only communication. Like I can see you and I can talk to you, but collaboration is much more than that. And it requires and is basically revealed by the data you're showing. It requires in-person collaboration and experience and engagement. And there is also a mental health side of the issue of not going back to the office. So what happens to people being completely separate from their community? So also lots of data show that really people are looking for this choice of choosing where they can work, right? And you talk about Musa before, about this hybrid model, work either in the office or in the space. The problem is that when you give people choice, then you can expect a lot of variability. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that also later on the presentation.
Excellent.
And I think, you know, one of the things that we've got out of what people miss and culture and these other moments, really also kind of sparked, you know, ideas of probably ideas we had about our office even before COVID happened, but those things actually became even more important for us to make sure that we brought them back. And, you know, the office still felt like a warm, inviting place that was going to be experiential for people. So this is a, you know, a simple way of doing this, but when we were, you know, probably I don't know, I guess 2 years ago in a much smaller office, before we moved to a larger office, we we had got like a mug wall and purchased all these mugs, with like cute sayings or just like unique things on them, and everyone picked a mug, and wrote their name on it, and that became something that was really like just part of our culture. And then we moved and we brought the mugs with us, and it was just kind of always something that we kept in our culture. So, you know, we were thinking with the design team on how do we bring this to life in the new office, knowing that we're probably not serving coffee. You know, that's one of the things that we said we're not going to do coming back. And I think we could have easily said, like, let's just scrap this mug wall. That doesn't make sense right now. But we knew it was important and we wanted it to be a part of us. So, with the help of our creative marketing team, and a wonderful design team, we did this I miss your mug wall. You know, it's like double meaning, I miss your face, and put a Polaroid camera there and a way for people to take a picture of themselves and hang it where hopefully one day they'll be hanging their mug. Which is a fun way for us to kind of be in the office for people, you know, aren't maybe like are coming into the office but aren't crossing paths in the office. So they can come in, take their picture and put it there, and then you kind of know who's been there, and it just becomes like a fun moment. Which on top of, you know, working with Spacemate, which we're going to show to talk about health and safety, we also kind of wanted to talk about where are these like little moments of interaction and culture, and how can we actually measure, you know, people stopping and using these things as part of measuring experience. And then another part of experience, you know, is really, and I kind of touched on this with health and safety, but communicating effectively. So it's one thing to plan for a safe return. It's one thing to add cultural moments and other things like that. But if you don't communicate them out to people, then people aren't really going to know why something is designed a certain way, how to use it, or even kind of get excited about coming back. So, you know, we had a couple of different change management type strategies that we used, before opening our office. So one was just like an email that kind of highlighted a lot of these design things that I pointed out, what to expect when coming back. You know, the timeline of how it was going to work. It's really important for people to understand when is the office open, you know, like, are there different types of hours that it's being used, how do I use this healthy office app, all these different things. So making sure that that's communicated. And then we also had a video of our lead designer on the project, Tori, explaining the office to everybody and really giving them like this virtual, this is the new office, tour, if you will, which really helped for people to, again, feel comfortable about coming back, but also a little bit excited about all these special cultural moments that will be waiting for people when they return.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, I can connect to that. And Musa, would you mind going a couple of slides back on the mug wall? So I'd like to connect with the experience again. So I think there is a trend, like a more broader term, right? It's not only in the office. It happened in retail, this revolution a couple of years ago. It started. It's also in healthcare, where basically there is a combination of a physical, let's say, brick and mortar shops, and also the virtual experience of buying online. And at the beginning, you know, people were scared, oh, we're going to buy everything online, or etc. But that didn't happen. Still, there is a strong physical presence or shops. Why? Because of experience. And experience is very crucial in providing something that, you know, the virtual cannot give you, which is the materiality of this wall, the color, the fact that somebody was there and you really put the picture. So there is a lot into it, and the benefits are still trying to be quantified, right? It's very hard to measure experience, but you can be sure that experience is a critical part of going back to the office. And it happened with, let's say, with retail, as we mentioned, also with healthcare, with telemedicine. So telemedicine didn't make hospital disappear. No, hospitals are there for taking care of something that telemedicine cannot take care of. So here the same, the office needs to be transformed and offer a set of services and opportunities that the virtual cannot offer. And this is the stage where we're in, right? We're trying to learn, what does it mean to have an office, how the office should perform. If it's not for, spontaneous serendipity interaction, how do you enforce collaboration? How do you enforce the sense of belonging to Notel or to other companies? So these are critical questions which, as we are trying to transform the office rather than reactivating, it's not a mere return to the office, because the office may be different, as Christina mentioned, or also because the office in general is different. So it's not really a return, it's more of a transformation, as a reimagination of the office to enable really the future of work.
Yeah, Davide, if you don't mind, just when you talk about retail, I remember a couple of years ago, everyone was talking about the death of retail, and I think to some extent that was somewhat exaggerated. It was somewhat exaggerated. It's about supplementing, right, the in-store with the virtual, and you see companies still investing in brick and mortar because that's where the magic happens, and so it's less about. I think the big takeaway for me, Davide, is it's less about binary thinking, like, going into the office or not. And humans sometimes we fall into this trap of thinking whether it's this or that, whereas we need to be more nuanced and think about different, essentially a continuum of returning to the office with different flavors for different people, and less about, I'm all in, I'm working from home forever, I'm coming in 5 days a week. And the human brain is wired to be simplistic and do kind of shortcut thinking. And so thinking about, virtual as a supplement, retail as a supplement to the experience is key there. That was enlightening to hear you talk about that. Now we'll get into future proofing.
Yeah, so completely agree with that. So the thing that really changed is really the fact that people now have choice. Everybody went back to the to virtual, right? But now they can go back to physical. But people know that they can be in virtual, so you cannot force back everybody being in a physical office no longer, right? So now that people have choice, this comes with a set of opportunities for employees, but also challenges for the real estate. How much space do you need? How can you know, right? When the space will be used, by whom, with which work style. And the challenge is really that this kind of variability of people really demands for flexibility. You need to be able to accommodate different work styles from the different people, and also occurring at different types of the day. For example, some prediction, say that, Monday and Fridays, the office may be empty, right? It's closer to the weekend, while Wednesdays, you could have peak of occupancy, but the space is the same. So how can you make sure that you can somehow either even out the occupancy level, or you have a flexible space or environment that can adapt to these shifts of occupancy and demands for space. So the core here solution is twofold. The first, there is a hardware component using the computer science metaphor, where you need a great space, and this will never taken away. You need a great space, you need great amenities, you need a great design. And at the same time, the kind of new component is the software. So together with the hardware, you need a good software to operate the space. And by software, we mean means of, for example, information technology to understand how the space is used and how to predict this kind of peak occupancy and how to dynamically allocate resources so that you can really prevent this kind of peaks from happening. So in order to do that, there are really three major components that we should really study. So the first is the people. Who are your employees? You need to know them. You need to know what they need to be successful in the office, which resources they need, which type of spaces, amenities, which type of collaboration environment they need. And by learning these things, using, for example, the questionnaire that Christina mentioned before, and integrate this type of interviews with the sensors, you can define personas, where a persona is a kind of a model, an abstract model of a person, a typical person that has a type of schedule, which is related to their preferences and their work styles. Once you have the information about people, you need to combine it with information about spaces. And spaces needs to be there to accommodate the different types of work styles. You may need desk, you may need, sitting desk or standing desk. You may need pods for conferencing room, collaboration area, times for creative thinking, time for isolation, or time for collaboration. So you need all this type of variability, and you need to make sure that everybody coming to the office, they will have access to these spaces if they need it. But it's very hard to predict it, right? There's a lot of variability. So that's why the third component that you need beyond spaces, beyond people, you need technology. And this is really the conduit that makes sure that the spaces are using properly by the people. And in order to do that, if we can move to the next slide, we need really three main. This is a kind of a pipeline on how we can do that. So the first element is sensing, where sensing is a general term for collecting data about your spaces and your employees using, as we mentioned, questionnaire, or using more advanced technologies that can include, for example, Wi-Fi tracking of people movement. You can have occupancy sensor, which tells you how many people if somebody is in the space or no. Technology that count people in a space that will tell you, right, in this space there are 20 people, etc. You don't know who they are, but you know that they are. But also Bluetooth technology that you can install on the phone using apps and basically track the movement of people inside the space. Now, if this data collection phase is done in a privacy conscious way, and by doing extra communication, as Christina mentioned before, to the employees, is a very powerful diagnostic tool. The system will tell you how much the space is currently used, and it's focused on the present. Right now, what's happening in the space. The thing is that by only having sensing, your solution is mostly reactive. Basically, you detect a problem, right? So my space is crowded or my space is empty. And then you need to figure out a way on how to resolve this problem. So that's why we need the second component, which is the predictive analytics component. That component will help you foresee what's going to happen, not today, but tomorrow or the day after, so that you can pre-position resources before you detect the problem. So here, the goal is moving from a reactive approach where you can detect your space is empty to let's say a predictive or a proactive approach where you can prevent that. And the metaphor is the one of Waze, or think about Google Streets or something like that. How do you navigate the city? It's not very useful to have a tool that tells you, Davide, you are stuck in traffic for the next 2 hours, right? Good luck. Instead, what you want is a tool that can tell you that if you follow this road, you will be stuck in traffic. So it can recommend you a different route so that you will not be stuck in traffic. And that's why predictive analytics is a great segue to the decision making. How can you configure your space, or basically decide how many people should go back? What are the types of amenities you want to provide? And what is the policy for the space? For example, as Christina mentioned, do you want to offer coffee in the space or no? So by running this analysis, you can make informed decisions, which are then implemented. And then with another cycling of sensing predictive analytics, you keep improvement and refining upon this prediction and make better decisions day after day after day in a kind of a continuous fashion. So in the next slide, I'm going to show you a dashboard that basically reveals some of the insights that emerge from us using Spacemate technology from Knotel. Before we play the video, I just want to briefly introduce the scope of work. So here we tested different types of strategy in collaboration with Christina and with Nathan and Sean at Knotel. And basically we wanted to see how many people can they go back, and what are the expected occupancy patterns, and how can we be better prepared for what are the implications of having this amount of people in the workspace. So we use predictive analytics, which is basically use a simulation to understand the journey of employee in space as they enter the building, as they basically navigate, they occupy the different spaces, and then they leave. So our tool Spacemate technology enables to predict that, and then you can quantify a lot of aspects of space utilization, safety, and experience, where the goal is to find a trade-offs, because the optimal safe environment is an empty environment. Everybody's home, right? Perfectly safe with social distancing, but you really affect the experience of people and the opportunities for social interaction or even seeing each other. But if you want to maximize for that, then safety is at risk. So the tools enabled us to really reason about the trade-offs. And yeah, Musa, if you can just play the video, let's see if that
yeah, let me
properly.
let's
Thank
pull
you
that
so
up.
much.
Yeah, we'll pull that up right now.
Yep, so if, yeah, it's full screen, all great. Yeah, so on the left-hand side, you can see the input data that went into the simulation. So how many people, let's say 15, how many meetings are people expected to have, and when are, for example, lunch, is it expected to be inside the space or outside? So based on the input, we create scenarios, right? You see here, scenario 1, 2, and 5, and we want to score these scenarios, right? We give a big grade at the end, which is composed of a social distancing index for safety, an interaction index for experience, a mobility index for how much people are expected to walk, which has a link with health, right, and well-being. So the dashboard reveals space utilization on the right-hand side, and we use heat mapping to show what are the possible interaction of people and possibility of safety issues. So here, if you can click, you can isolate, and this is predictive, right? So this is saying what's likely to happen tomorrow. So you can expect the different types of utilization of the resources based on, here it's 15 people that you expect in the space. And you can analyze how, based on their profile and work styles, these employees are going to use the spaces. You can compare, trends across different spaces and try to see where there could be a shortage of space to meet the people's needs. Then we can zoom in into safety. We quantify two types of things. The first is short interaction. You can see these orange dots that indicate when people are walking, when they are likely to be too close to each other. And the heat map reveals a probable situation where a lack of space may bring people to sit too close to each other and infringe upon social distancing. So that was the safety aspect. Here there is the social interaction aspect. So the green heat maps indicate the probability of people to strike a conversation or to cross path, which is something that we want to encourage. And here you can see the center of the space is the kitchenette where people can have water, no coffee, but just water for a few moments. And then we compare scenarios. So you see scenario 2, scenario 3, the things that mostly changes is the number of people, right? Which we compare 15 people, 20 people, 25 people, while the rest of the parameter stays the same. And then you can compare for selected space, such as an open space, what are the difference if you were to bring 15 people, 20 people, or 25 people. And you see that the more people you bring, obviously, the higher the space demand. And you see in gray the excess of demand based on the possible availability. So you can flag this and say, oh, people may need more meeting rooms than what are available today. So then you can make provision to prevent this from happening by allocating space differently. And these are the social interaction. Of course, if you bring 25 people, there's much more opportunity, right, to gather when there is the social wall that Christina mentioned and also the kitchenette. But this is affecting also safety. So the dashboard and the goal of this of Spacemate and predictive analytics in to foresee these implication of these decisions. You see the first solution is scored 77, high safety and less social interaction. The second strikes a balance between possible safety and interactions. And the last one really prioritizes interaction. You bring in 25 people, but then you have a higher risk for safety. So with this tool, we basically enable Notel to make decisions and compare different type of strategy. And based on the insights, you can, for example, change the function of a space rather than being a meeting room. On Wednesdays, it could be a collaboration area. Or you can, for example, space out the furniture in different ways. You can, for example, change the type of people, like the cap of people. And you can also test different strategies. Is it hoteling best, or is it fixed desk for day? What do people reserve, right? Do they allocate the desk for the whole day, or people can change desk during the day? So this is a tool to make quantify in a data-driven way the implication of a workplace strategy on both safety and the experience of the people, so you can find the optimal trade-offs.
Yeah, wow, David, the concept there of being able to quantify, your score there and feel a little bit more concrete and definitive about how your return to work falls on the safety continuum. That's pretty fascinating.
So yeah, I'm also super fascinated about that because these things cannot be seen usually, right? So the alternative to that is using the experience of people, which is great. But the problem is that human intuition and experience is not enough to really fast forward a full workday. When you have 20 people, they move, they use different spaces. And intuition and experience is not good enough at this stage. We need to have more quantitative approaches to verify our assumptions or discover new things, right? New possible things that may, let's say, create or spark a new creative idea to improve the experience of people. And the platform is really, this has been designed for an hotel, but it's scalable. You can change the parameter. For example, mobility indicates how much people walk. It could be replaced with something else like distractions. How many people do you see around you, or noise, or temperature, or thermal comfort? So you could really try to extend it based on your need. And we are super excited, yeah, to work with Notal on this. It's been an incredible experience.
Wow, this is great, Davide. And as you were talking just over the last couple minutes, and even going back to some of Christina's comments, one of the themes that just kept popping in my head is this idea of like purpose-driven workspace, right? Or some people call activity-based workspace. The idea that, you know, in the past, maybe we would categorize, you know, the way people work maybe by their department, if they were engineers, if they were in marketing. But as we've come to learn, I think this, I guess it's the idea of maybe like behavioral economics. It's less about if they're an engineer, if they're a marketer, and it's more about like what they actually do, where they actually walk, and being able to use that behavioral data allows you to do some of these predictive analytics and ultimately make good decisions that, you know, that allow you to mitigate risk and, you know, come to a place where you feel good about the trade-offs, Davide.
Completely agree. Sorry, Christina.
No, that's okay. I was going to actually just emphasize the trade-offs point again, too, because I think that's such a big part of it. You know, right now we're really like assessing health and safety is probably the most important thing that's weighted here. But, you know, as, you know, there's a vaccine or we return, you know, with things like more people moving towards an unassigned seating model or these different things that are new ways of working for a lot of organizations. Understanding those trade-offs is really important, because I think, you know, before COVID happened and people were really nervous about going unassigned because it meant someone had to give up their desk. It's harder to see the reward in doing that. But if you can actually run these scenarios and showcase, you know, this is the data of how people are working, this is how we predict the space will be used, you can actually see, even with less desks than people, those desks aren't going to be used all the time. So you get to like kind of really weigh those trade-offs and actually show them to people too, so that you're using this data. And then when you go one step further, which Debbie touched on, is like, how do you measure that? And that stuff's always going to be fluid and changing. And I think that's the important part here. It's like you need the predictive side and the measuring side to really make some decisions about the future.
Yeah, and another aspect of this is that in this way we can do some kind of scenario optimization. So we can really prepare the office for a specific scenario, where the vision is really to have this kind of persistent optimization working behind the scenes. And the vision is really that the spaces that we inhabit are no longer kind of passive containers, right? They are boxes where people come in. No, they're able to understand who are the people and basically provide continuous insights on how the space might be used and recommendation to the stakeholders, which could be HR, could be facility management, could be the designers and workplace strategists. So all these type of people, how to really improve the experience of the employees. I believe this is really this is the future of the, and this is the only way we can really type into the future fluid and dynamic workplace.
Yeah, Davide, we've got a question here from Sean Dikiran. What is the behavioral simulation based on? I guess maybe they're asking about some of the inputs that went into this model. Is that can you speak to that?
Sure. So the input are mostly two. The first is a space layout, and the second are people profiles. Now, the profile of the people is determined by different types of pieces of data, so that is collected from different sources. One source is a very detailed analysis that Christina and her team have done about the people. What are their work style? What are their work patterns? What is their demand for spaces? And what are the different teams that will inhabit the space? And the other one comes more from quantitative, and it could be, for example, the calendar reservation of the rooms. It could be Wi-Fi if it's implemented, like Wi-Fi tracking if it's implemented in the space. So depending on the types of data collection infrastructure, which is both done like in an analogical way, so interview people, or digital way, collecting data with sensors, we feed this data into our predictive model. And the cycle is closed, as Christina mentioned. When you do the prediction, you check the actual data, and then you constantly refine and calibrate the algorithms. So depending on the data available, we consume that and we input that into the prediction.
That's great. Davide, do you mind, can you speak to maybe a couple of other examples of how some of your other clients are using models like this? Maybe they have different characteristics or different kind of goals in terms of the mobility score interactions. What are, Christina, you talk about using the data, I think like to build a business case for going back, but obviously I think the ultimate priority is just ensuring safety, as safe as you can get. But I'd be interested, Davide, and give us a little bit of insight into what other clients are using your technology for as they plot their return back.
Yeah, so we've been working both with architects, like in the design phase, for example, as you are planning a new space. So how can you use this tool to basically make sure that the space that you design will be safe? So that is one type of aspect of the work, which relates most to the design phase. And the other is once people are already back. And as you mentioned, right now, the main things that people are interested is in the social distancing index, which basically quantify the safety of people, although we're also expanding it to account for the air circulation and other types of aspect of safety. So yeah, so when we talk about the design, the parameters are many, are both safety, etc., experience, etc. We've been trying to measure also visual distraction of people. So depending on where people are sitting, how many people will pass in front of you, so that it may cause you to be distracted. But again, when we work with hospital, for example, then the situation is different. Beyond safety, like the social distancing, we also have patient flow, or the experience of doctor and nurses, or the waiting time of patients. So the system is really scalable depending on the types of space it is used on. In offices, the priorities for definitely experience, safety, and productivity. But in, let's say, in a hospital, we've been working on other things, and logistics is also another type of market, right? Where you want to have safety, but also items throughput. So it's very flexible too.
Yeah, that's fascinating. We've got just 2 minutes left, and I want to be respectful of other people's time. So let's start to wrap. But I want to make sure that for those interested in learning more, or contacting David and the team, definitely visit the website spacemate.io.com. I'm sure he'd be happy to take questions and show off some demos. Thank you again, David, for making some time.
Thank you so much
to join us today. And then for those interested in tapping into Christina's expertise or some of the other workplace strategists at Knotel, visit the website at knotel.com, or feel free to reach out, hello@knotel.com. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we've got a special guest next week. Xerox's head of international real estate, formerly in charge of APAC and EMEA, Neil Valor, will be joining our CEO, Amal Sarva, next week. But fascinating discussion today about using technology to enhance the safety as companies slowly start thinking about returning to work. And hopefully, the discussion is in a different phase as we venture into 2021 and hopefully get these vaccines out. But again, special thanks to Christina and Davide for sharing their expertise today. For those interested in learning more, definitely feel free to reach out, and we'll make sure you get connected. Thank you again, Christina and Davide.
Thank you. Bye-bye.